Hey, Chicago, what do you say? This is the CHGO Cubs Podcast, and the good news, guys, once again, because we're redoing this again, is the Chicago Cubs haven't heard us for 5 consecutive days.
You got one more day left in the break, so enjoy it.
Yeah, my favorite part of the 5-day streak was the friends we made along the way.
Some people may have been hurt by the draft. You don't know that.
Yeah, people that...
That's true. According to our YouTube chat, a lot of them were hurt. But hey, I care about the Major League team more than anything else. Whatever.
Sure.
Welcome. Today we are going to talk a lot about, the first half of the season, recapping it a little bit. We're going to look back at our season predictions and make fun of ourselves for being wrong about a lot of things and maybe celebrate the things we were right about. And we'll talk about a bunch of other stuff too. I do want to start the show though with Ryan wrote a great story about ALLCITY and Justin Steele's friendship growing up, or the last 10 years or so.
9 years, yeah.
In the minor leagues, coming up through the system together. It's very well known that Steele and Alzolay are super close. Highly recommend going to check it out. Just go to Ryan's Twitter account or go to allchgo.com and you'll find it pretty easily.
I got to be honest with you, Ryan. I do think, maybe I'm biased, but I think your writing is a lot better when it's not co-written by Brendan. Hot take, but I
too many graphs in Brendan stories. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah,
too many graphs. No, I think, like you said, like everyone kind of knows that they're really good friends. I think anytime either one's asked about the other, like they bring that up of how good their friends are, and I don't know, just interested in exploring that because they, Adbert signed in 2013 but didn't come over from Venezuela until 2014. Steele gets drafted in 14, so they're in Arizona in 2014 rookie league. 2015 they're up in Eugene when that was still a affiliate of minor league baseball Cubs, and 16 we're in South Bend together, and then 17 Myrtle Beach, and just kind of exploring the beginnings of that friendship. Obviously what happened when Alzolay kept going as Steele had Tommy John in 2017, how they kind of remained close through that time. And then now coming up on the big league team, Adbert came up in 19, the tip of the cap thing. Steele made his debut in 21, and just kind of how their paths have just kind of remained intertwined, even though I think one of the cooler things was talking to people for this. One of the, I guess, one of the funny things to me is that, initial conversations were obviously because these two were going to be starters, right? Like they came up through a system of starters. The idea was that they were both going to be starters in the Cubs rotation at some point. And then it sort of flipped where like Alzolay was the starter. He was a starting pitching prospect, and then Steele was going to be in the bullpen, like a high leverage, multi-inning, whatever it was. Like he was supposed to be the bullpen guy. And then obviously the last 2 years, things flipped, right? Like now Steele is an all-star starting pitcher, possibly, maybe even should have started the All-Star game 2 days ago. And Albert Alzolay is starting to become like a lockdown closer who we know how good he can be when he's at his best. And his best is probably an all-star level closer. If he can get there. If he can get there and get that consistently, I think he has that kind of potential. So, yeah, I just was interested in going through, the last 9 years of just how they developed, obviously as pitchers individually, but just how they developed that bond that has kind of carried them where, Adbert's checking in with Steele as he's going through Tommy John. Steele's continuing to check in with Adbert like every day when Adbert's going through the recovery from that lat strain he had last year. 9 years of a friendship and a bond, and obviously being around the other guy for 200 plus days a year helps with that. But like it's just, I think it's a very interesting story, and like one that we hear about a lot because they always talk about it, but not one that like had been explored as much before. So that was, I don't know, that interested me, and I think
I was not surprised. It's a great piece, and so I was not surprised to check on Cubs Twitter today and see so many people praising your writing and the story. I think for me, what is especially fun about a story like that and really being able to explore it is that not to compare things directly to like that last core, right? Because everything is different, but I think one of the things that was really special about that team, beyond them being really good at baseball and winning the World Series in 2016, was the development of those personalities and the bond that I think so many of us as fans, not people we actually know, but with those players, right, and their relationships. Like one of my favorite things, and I think everybody's favorite things to watch for so many years, was the relationship that Chris Bryant had with Anthony Rizzo, or that like Anthony Rizzo had with Dexter Fowler, off the field, on the field, the little things they would do with each other. And I feel like because we've gone through so many trade deadlines, we've missed out on a lot of that. Like we're getting a lot of part-time players that they're trading or we're saying goodbye to, right? And so to read a story like this and, continue to be able to gravitate towards these players that have been developed in the Cubs system and have been members of this organization for so long, I think it is sort of getting back to, again, it's not apples to apples, but like being able to really connect with these guys and like learn more about their relationship and just be able to gravitate more to them as people and members of this Cubs organization. It was just a really fun piece.
Yeah, and I think one thing I neglected to mention is just the fact that Justin Steele is from he's American-born, country, Lucedale, Mississippi, right? And Adbert's from the city out in Venezuela, like very completely different backgrounds, different cultures. And I think that's like one of the points I was trying to make is like how did two guys from completely different backgrounds become such good friends? Like how did that relationship develop? So yeah, it's on allchgo.com. Also, great graphic work from our guy Joey Spathis.
Yes,
we love and miss you, Joey.
He'll be back here. Next month?
He'll be back soon. But yeah, great graphic work from him. Go check it out. allchgo.com. Would appreciate some feedback on that.
Absolutely, good stuff, Ryan. Big of me to admit that.
Thanks.
Through gritted teeth, he gives you the compliment
with his the Arthur bald fist.
Right.
Yeah, the love and hate relationship between me and Ryan Herrera on this podcast. It's very well known. Okay, so
as well known as Steele and Adbert's friendship.
There you go.
There you go.
So, like I said earlier, we're gonna talk a lot about the first half of the year. Kind of just finally do the recap and go. We're gonna do our second half predictions. We were gonna do that at the end of yesterday's show, but we got to talking about Cubs potentially trading for Nolan Arenado or Paul Goldschmidt, just because the chat was talking about it. So we can, I feel like going into it, we can just go right into our season predictions going into opening day, which are always fun to come back and look at because we're always wrong, most of us. While before we start, hit the like button. I don't know if I've told you all to do that yet, but hit the like button. I see all of you in the chat. I see you, Michael Collada. I see you, Rachel. I see you, Shane. I see you, Terry, Fernando. All of you. So I guess I don't know where to start. I guess we can start with our season prediction records.
The records.
Obviously, I was the most optimistic one because I am who I am.
I mean, I wasn't too far behind. I was number 2.
88 and 74
Luke
for
with
me.
a very nice Price is Right situation right now.
83
Just barely the lowest, so
Mm-hmm.
he's in the driver's seat for now.
Corey with 84-78. Brennan said 84-78, and Jared also said 84-78. I mean, it did make me feel a little bit better to not be the one optimistic guy like I was last year, but I would say now we all kind of look like, unless things really turn around here in the second half, I feel like we're all going to be wrong here, but there's a lot of season left. But
I do think though that those predictions for the most part reflect kind of what we've seen, right? They've been on the lower end of kind of how we all figured this, but so many of us had them going 6 games over 500, right? That's not exactly lighting the world on fire. And even in that scenario, I think a lot of us still predicted them to either miss the playoffs or maybe get that last wild card. So I don't think we're off by a lot, as Brendan would say. I feel like we're one standard deviation the wrong direction, right? But this is I think we were all kind of expecting this to be a sort of middle-of-the-road team, and a lot was going to come down to close games and things like that. And unfortunately, we've seen the lesser of those outcomes in this first half than we would have liked.
Yeah, man, that's what we talked about so much is that, last season was even more so. 2022 was like a lot of things had to go right for that team to be good. They had built like what we felt was a better floor for 2023. It still wasn't a great floor, but it was like if they can be a little bit closer to what their ceiling is, they should have a good year. And I think for the most part, we just have not seen them play close to what their ceiling could be. I think we've seen them play a lot closer to what their floor is. But they're still 5 games under 500 right now. Like there is still potential. Yeah, there's still potential for them to, start to make a little bit of a run here. As far as the trade deadline goes, not a whole lot of time. They obviously have to come out of the break hot, but like I think just looking back on it, is we just can see. You mentioned, Corey, the close games and just where they're at in those, and they're 3-12 on Sundays or something like that. Just like closing out series, closing out close games. It's just we've just seen that part just be very negative for them. Like that, they just have not done well in those situations. The offense has been, probably more middle of the pack. The starting pitching has obviously been great, but we just kind of have seen the worst of a lot of the things that could be going on.
When we have a very good friend of the chat, Jeff Everson, live on YouTube here, pointing out that their Pythag record, which is, you combine their runs scored versus runs allowed, stuff like that, 47-42. So, it's like, unfortunately, you don't like credit them. It's not like, they've been unlucky, right? Like when they lose these close games, a lot of it is them being bad in tight situations and not driving runners in, or relievers not performing, whatever it is. But I think, like, to me, it's more just like, I think when we've seen this team at its worst, I don't think that's reflective of their true talent, right? I don't think this is a 95-win team that is just like horribly unlucky, right? But like, I think if this roster stayed exactly the same through the deadline for all 162 games, I think it's exactly kind of that same range.
A little bit
like
over 500.
Kind of around 500. And if toward the end of the year they went on a real cold stretch, they'd be a little more under. If they got hot, they'd be around it or a little over. I think that's just like where this true talent of this team is. It's like somewhere around the middle, which I think is what we've seen.
Real quick, want to point out the base runs metric on Fangraphs. That's like, it's pretty similar to like the run differential, like the standings, the Pythag standings. Like base runs takes into account not just run differential, a lot of underlying factors and all that stuff. And they have the Cubs should be 49-40 right now, according to base runs on Fangraphs. So that's even higher than where
I reject your reality and substitute my own. The Cubs are in first place.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying is like the numbers, and games aren't played on computers, right? But numbers should say statistically they're a lot better than where they're at right now. So we've just seen a lot of these statistical things go against them versus for them.
Well, and they're on the field, right? We've talked about it a lot. Like there's obviously a conversation to be had about how you react to them supposedly being better in some of these models, but not on the field, right? Like you would prefer that not be happening, right? Because it's not always by random chance, right? And I don't mean to suggest that that's like only David Ross or Jed Hoyer or something, but I think if you're doing things where these things suggest you should be better, but you're worse on the field, you might want to figure out why that's happening. Yeah.
I mean, we've all basically said it. Like, the team has played better than what the record is, in my opinion. They've had, in May, I felt like there were a bunch of games they lost because the bullpen gave it up.
Or the offense just didn't come through.
Or the offense didn't come through in the clutch moments. You can argue maybe they should have had even more wins in April if they would have started the season with Christopher Morel or Matt Mervis. Okay, you can kind of argue it. But, like, I'm just saying, if they start the year with the most optimal roster, especially with Christopher Morel now leading the team in homers, and we've talked about how the lack of slug on this team has cost this team games. I'm just saying, maybe there's another win or two in there.
They were what, 2-11 when the first 13 games when he was hitting the
for sure
out of the ball.
He comes up, but the rest of the team isn't performing. If he's coming up when the rest of the team is performing, then maybe there's another win or two in there. That's all I'm saying.
I think ultimately, if I were looking at it, I would say that this is it's all on Jed, right? This is the roster he put out, and
Absolutely.
While we can sit here and say, hey, some of these moves are good, some of these things are working out, some of these things aren't, etc. He said it, and I use this quote all the time. I think I said it to you guys off the air yesterday, right? Like, he said the best teams blow teams out. That is not the team he constructed, right? So when you don't construct an offense that can blow teams out, when you hand your manager a very much work-in-progress bullpen that needed a lot of tinkering to get the roles right it really wasn't even settled until late June, right? That's the risk you run. The risk you run is that you do lose all those close games, and you are sitting here looking back saying, boy, they gave that one away. They gave that one in Houston away. They gave that one in Milwaukee away. Like, that's the risk with a roster like this. The reason you don't see in years past a team like the Dodgers have that sentiment, or the 2016 Cubs have that sentiment, is because that roster was built to beat the life out of other teams.
Yeah.
You can afford a reliever not performing well because you're going out and scoring 6 runs a game, right? You have 3 starters competing for a Cy Young, right? Yeah. That's not how this roster was constructed, so that's why we're sitting here talking about a team that's 5 under when maybe you could look at other stuff and say, oh, they should be 5 over, or they should be 500, whatever it is.
I'm scrolling down the rest of our article that has our season predictions. We predicted like who would lead the team in homers.
I like the Bellinger question.
The Bellinger question.
Yeah, we said will Cody Bellinger have a bounce back season?
Yeah.
I think we all had some form of like yes, whether that was like it's not going to be 2019 MVP season Cody Bellinger, but we thought that he maybe some new environment, some new instruction with like Dustin Kelly, just new voices around him. Like maybe that could help him, like, because he had a couple of really bad seasons offensively. So like even league average felt like, oh, that's kind of a bounce back, but like a little bit higher, like a 110 type WRC plus. Like you would have been, I guess, kind of satisfied with that, considering you didn't give him like this huge deal, and he's playing better than that. So I think we're all kind of right.
He's been
in that
around
sense.
Because of the injury. He's been about right around the middling ground of what, like, from the ceiling of what he could be and the floor. Right. I'm intrigued to know what his numbers would be if he didn't get hurt. That's what I'll leave it at. But
potentially, he still had a 126 WRC plus. So like that's
when he's played, he's been great. Outside of a couple weeks where he slumped.
Yeah. Considering where he's been in the last couple of years, like
absolutely,
I think he's doing better than we even expected.
He's already. I mean, if you're like a WAR person, he's already been worth more wins above replacement than he was for LA all of last year in about half the plate appearances.
Last 3 seasons.
So.
But anyway,
right. If you count the negative one in 2021,
yeah. So anyway, like I was getting ready to say, our prediction for like who is going to lead the team in homers, we're all pretty much way off on this. I said Seiya Suzuki with 31. He's got 6. Luke and Jared both said Bellinger,
I don't
which
remember
maybe
who I
he'd be
said.
closer if he didn't get hurt for that month. So I can't give him too much flack. Ryan said Trey Mancini, which is hilarious.
With 26.
Oh, and Corey also said Bellinger. But Brennan said Dansby Swanson at 31. He's got 10 right now. He'd have to get real hot. But
and right now,
no one said Christopher Morel, which no one knew when Christopher Morel would be on the roster. No one knew if he could rebound or could get back to how he was playing at the beginning of his tenure with the Cubs. So it's not necessarily surprising that we didn't say.
Well, the funny thing is, it was Morel and Wisdom is second, I want to say. So it's like the two guys. Like I remember having the conversation, and like we could pick Wisdom. He's probably not going to play every day at third. He may not have the plate appearance to do that, all that stuff. And you know what? Those two guys are the two we didn't expect to have the ton of plate appearances.
We spent a good amount of time on this podcast already praising Ryan's writing. I think it is fair we spend at least 10 seconds. Trey Mancini, Ryan.
Come on, man. I was trying to be outside the box.
That's
power. He had good power numbers.
Scroll down a little bit. Most likely to represent the Cubs in the All-Star game. None of us had Justin Steele or Marcus Stroman. Me and Jared said Nico Horner. Brendan said Dansby and Horner, so you got Dansby. Corey also said Dansby. You said Dansby. So at least we were right about Dansby, like, continuing to be an All-Star player. So, yeah, I mean, there's I think if you move down to, like, the award predictions right now, I'll just go off with mine. You guys can go with yours. I said NL MVP Austin Riley, Julio Urias NL Cy Young, Kodai Senga NL Rookie of the Year, David Ross for Manager of the Year, and then Comeback Player of the Year for Cody Bellinger. And I mean,
hey, Cody Bellinger might be in that mix.
He might be
honestly.
able to if he stays healthy the rest of the year. And if the Cubs turn it around and find the way to get themselves in the playoffs, maybe David Ross throws himself into that mix. But I mean, Kodai Senga did go to the All-Star game, so
did Austin Riley.
Yeah, I mean, I won't even. I
think Acuna is running away with the NL MVP.
Yeah, I don't want to even look at my National League award predictions because I think actually no, Corbin Carroll might still win the NL. He probably will win the NL Rookie of the Year, so that's a good one. But I scrolled all the way down to the World Series predictions. I had Padres over Yankees. That doesn't feel like it's gonna happen.
I said Cardinals, Blue Jays, but that was kind of like a bit.
Corey had Yankees over Padres, so not much better than what I put.
I mean, do we give you credit for burying the Cardinals? Isn't that why you do that?
One might say it is. Yeah. It is why I do that. And a lot of people yelled at me online. It's like, you don't understand
reverse
the bit.
jinx.
Yeah, reverse jinx.
Yeah. So I think every time we take a look at these and we realize how wrong we are. For one, it's like no one's ever like sports are hard to predict anyway, but like especially baseball, just you don't know. And that's when we talk about the trade deadline and how we talk about you go a whole 162, you probably got a lot better of a picture than what you do at the end of July. But you lose 2 months of that from the trade deadline. So what this team has been and what this team might be coming out of the All-Star break, they may be way better or playing way better by the end of the year, but you lose 2 months of that. So I'm like, it's just so hard to predict what this team is going to be until you really get to the end of the season and see how right you were. Like, it's just the season fluctuates so much.
I do, because I've seen his name pop up a couple times in the chat. I feel like we never talk about it. I'll lay out 1 point on Jason Hayward, right? Because I think Gary mentioned that he has 8 homers. Ernesto talking about how he has more WAR in LA for the Cubs. Like, I'm not going to say that the Dodgers can't unlock stuff or whatever, but the Cubs have unlocked Bellinger, right? So it goes both ways. The only thing I'll say about Jason Hayward is it's very difficult to compare. He doesn't hit against lefties for the Dodgers because they're paying him nothing because the Cubs are paying him. So when you're comparing the two situations, the Cubs were playing him every day because they were paying him $25+ million, right? So comparing him to the Dodgers, who are letting him hit 7th only against righties and pinch hitting him the minute a lefty comes in, it's not apples to apples.
Yeah.
They're getting more out of him. I'm not denying that. But I'm saying the Cubs couldn't use him like that, right? Like they were paying him in a manner they could not treat him as a righty-only platoon guy.
And
like,
also
that's
just the
difference.
fact that he's getting paid nothing by the Dodgers.
Yeah.
He's playing free
also
with no pressure to perform for the first time in 8 years?
And I'm not saying that Ernesto or Gary in our chat suggested this. I have seen it suggested by others that like, oh, the Dodgers knew how to fix his swing. I don't really, like, that's what I'm saying. I don't know if that's true, right? Mm-hmm. Like, he's still hitting like 230. He's got a higher OPS, but like, he's only hitting against the right matchups. The Cubs didn't do that. They couldn't do that for the entire time that he was there because they were paying him $25 million to be an all-star level right fielder playing every day, not a platoon player.
You can't pay someone that much to be a platoon. And, if he was hitting exactly how he was during his Cubs career in LA, they probably would have cut him by now because he's not making any money.
Yeah.
Like if they were just not getting anything out of him, it's a small bit of change.
I'm sure the Dodgers, like Corey pointed at, I'm sure the Dodgers are wondering how the Cubs got Cody Bellinger to play even half as good as he did when he was an MVP level player. So, like Corey said, I think it goes hand in hand. I scrolled back up because I forgot to mention this, but we all said the Cubs will finish ahead of in the division-wise, and I just have to point out that Luke said Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, and Milwaukee, and they'll soon retake the North and never give it back. I just love that he said Pittsburgh and Cincinnati, and both those teams have been, better than we expected.
I mean,
but we all kind of said that.
One thing we definitely were all wrong on is St. Louis. We all gave them way too much
Jared
credit.
said everyone except the Cardinals.
And Cincinnati.
We gave them way too much credit, and
we were
that
absolutely
was
wrong
not,
on Cincinnati.
not a good. Yeah,
I did say that they would finish ahead of everyone because of the Delmetrics algorithm. So, once again, Fangraphs. maybe listen to me. Thanks. Okay, so if you guys want to check out our season predictions and then make fun of us online, allchgo.com. You can find that article. It's going to take you a minute to find it, but I think there's a search option. You can find it somehow, some way.
I would probably prefer they just read Ryan's article from
that too.
That
too.
And don't make fun of if they want to make fun of.
I'm
Cody,
ranking
fine.
Ryan's article number 1, and then if you want to, you want to get a good laugh, you can go check that out too.
Sure.
So, now as far as like where we're currently at, we came up with I kind of came up with a pros and cons list of the first half of the season. And Corey and Ryan didn't tell me if I was right or wrong, so we're just going to roll with it.
Yeah, let's see it. I haven't even seen
Should we?
these yet.
How far are we into the show, Sarah?
Go ahead and do it quickly.
Are we at 25 minutes? Should we do it quickly?
Just go ahead. Yeah, it's yours.
And then maybe we can do the
cons.
ads and we can talk about it. Anyway, pros and cons list for me. I would say the pros has been the production up the middle. That includes Nico Horner, Dansby Swanson, and Cody Bellinger / Mike Tauchman, in my opinion. Just the production all around in terms of offense and defense has been elite. The starting pitching, we've talked about Steele and Stroman a ton. Drew Smyly has struggled in his last 4 to 5 starts, but he had a great April and May, almost threw a perfect game. Outside of Jameson Taillon, they've got decent to good starting pitching. Hayden Wisniewski, whatever. He's had some good starts. He had a bunch of bad starts, whatever. But your top guys have been great. Kyle Hendricks has been better than what we expected. And then the other pro is surprising players that have contributed. Miguel Amaya is the first one that comes off the top of my head. Mark Leiter Jr., they DFA'd him, and then he came back somehow. Julian Merriweather, we didn't know what he was going to be. He's been really good.
Mike Tauchman,
right? So that's my pros for the first half of the season. My cons, we talk about this a ton. The roster construction and how they put this team together. There's plenty of things you can criticize there.
Plenty of holes in the roster.
And then Ian Happ, Seiya Suzuki, and Jameson Taillon have just struggled. Ian Happ had a great April. He's been he hasn't played well enough to what the Cubs are not only paying him, but also in the role that they're using him in or trying to use him in. He has not performed to what they need him to be. Seiya Suzuki, 6 homers. Again, I predicted 31, man. And maybe the oblique injury has something to do with that. Maybe, the lingering stuff that they refuse to talk to us about, whatever. Maybe that's why. Hopefully he gets hot here in the second half. And then obviously Jameson Taillon, who outside of his last start has not been great. All right. So those have been glaring things, especially these last few months. And then finally the last con, for me at least, is the long amount of time it took for David Ross to find roles in the bullpen. To me, they should have just started Alzolay as a closer. I know it's hindsight 2020.
Yep.
Well, I think that's.
But you can also, say, especially after the handful of times that Fulmer, didn't excel in that role, it still took them a long time to even give Alzolay that opportunity. They shouldn't be trying to figure out the bullpen in June. I'm sorry. That's just how I feel about it.
That, to me, is more a Hoyer thing than it is Ross.
I
agree they pulled the string late on Fulmer, but he's given those, guys that they sign, it's not really if Jed Hoyer wanted Alzolay to be the closer and not Michael Fulmer to start the season, that's what would have happened.
Well, whoever you want to, I'm not blaming anyone.
I'm just saying,
or I'm not blaming David Ross on that in particular. I'm just saying, it took way too long for them to figure out the bullpen role.
Agree.
Yeah.
I
also think it comes down to player performance too, because they brought in. Brad Boxberger was a good reliever for the Brewers for a few years there. We saw him a lot because they played the Cubs a lot.
Yeah.
He's a solid reliever and a good bullpen. And Michael Fulmer, he doesn't have the longest track record, but he had good stuff, solid numbers coming out of the bullpen. If those two veteran guys had performed how the Cubs, what they brought them in to do, then we probably wouldn't have that issue of trying to find bullpen roles that late in the season. I think it all comes down, of course, Jed Hoyer obviously deserves blame because these are the guys he brought in, but when it comes down to it,
they got to do their job.
The players got to perform, and when Michael Fulmer has found a better role, not specifically being the closer, and Brad Boxberger is still hurt, so that's where they're at now. But when they're not doing what they were brought in to do earlier in the season, that obviously pushes back. Okay, we have our defined roles.
Yeah,
that pushes that back because now you've taken up the first 3 weeks trying to see if these veterans can figure it out.
My biggest con is that the first base situation is and has been a total mess, and we all knew it was going to be a total mess. Like, that's one of those
I
things
could have definitely
that
put more on the cons
really
list.
pisses me off.
Yeah.
We all knew that addressing it in the way they did. I don't think a lot of us knew that Trey would perform as poorly as he has, but nobody wanted Eric Hosmer, right? Everybody knew that was a waste of time. Like, he was, at best going to be a league average bat that isn't a good defender. But it was a position that in the offseason, we all knew it wasn't addressed in a sufficient way and was going to be an issue. I think we had higher hopes for Mervis as well. But again, like, when you're in a position where you're calling up a guy who's never played MLB baseball before, and it's either he performs like he did in the minors or your whole season is a mess. Like, that's not fair to Matt Mervis, right?
Yeah.
So that's my biggest con, is that we knew that was going to be a problem, and of course it played out that way. The biggest pro for me is the small cheval on Clark and Waveland.
That's a good one.
Absolutely.
That's
a
huge
huge one.
addition.
That's huge.
I appreciate
I was
Huge
literally
addition.
talking about that earlier.
Huge
I mean-
addition, the small cheval. Hell yeah, brother.
Because you mentioned the obvious stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like Dansby and Nico, Belly, Christopher Morel. Like, yeah, sure, that's great. Justin Steele is amazing. Of course, that's a pro. But we're talking like sneaky pros, small cheval.
Yeah, I think you guys are completely overlooking the biggest pro, and this is not just Cubs. This is Major League Baseball. The pitch clock. The pitch clock. We haven't had a 4-hour game yet this year.
Yeah.
The pitch clock
I don't hate it.
is number one.
Yeah, I don't hate it.
No, absolutely number one, in my opinion. My unbiased opinion.
Okay.
I can't
But-
disagree with that.
But I will say, like, the cons list that you put together, agreed with most. I think Ian Happ, I think maybe that's a little more recency bias just because he's kind of struggled the last few weeks, I think because he still has a 115 WRC plus. He was maybe the most consistent hitter that the Cubs had. I mean, one thing I've seen, and I see where people are coming from as far as discourse, is like Ian Happ maybe needs to be more aggressive late in games, runners in scoring position, whatever. Great that he takes the walks, and you don't want to have him change his plate approach like that. You don't want him to change the hitter who he is, because he's been very good. His on base percentage is really high. But sometimes in those late situations when he's taking a walk to load the bases versus putting the ball in play, sometimes I see where people are coming from when they say they want to see him put the ball in play. I see that.
All right.
Kind of a didn't Dusty call like high OBP guys base cloggers at one point?
Maybe.
I feel like I'm not making that up.
Someone in the chat fact check Corey on that one.
On the Dusty thing, I don't think I'm making that up. I feel like it was about like guys like Adam
Base
Dunn,
cloggers?
who were like big walk guys. But I don't know. I could be making it up. I make stuff up all the time.
We can continue this, but we need to read an ad.
Sure.
Yeah, guy who walks and can't run most of the time. They're clogging up the bases for somebody who can run. So not really Hap because he can run. I think he was talking about Adam Dunn. But
Yeah.
That makes sense.
anyway, if we're talking about Small Cheval being a pro and a good addition to the neighborhood, you know what else is a good addition
Tell
to
me.
the Wrigleyville neighborhood?
Is it Sunnyside?
It is Sunnyside Cannabis Dispensary. Sunnyside is your home for judgment-free cannabis shopping, a place where all kinds of visitors are welcome to explore, discover, and purchase a wide array of high-quality products. Sunnyside has everything you need to elevate your summer. It is a one-stop shop for all your cannabis needs, no matter where you are on your cannabis journey. Easy online ordering and in-store pickup. Great transparent loyalty program, Sunnyside Rewards, and it is Illinois' favorite dispensary from city to suburbs, Wrigleyville to River North, Champaign to South Beloit. I tell you guys every time I live in Wrigleyville, I shop at the Wrigleyville Sunnyside location. It is so easy. Place the order on your phone. It's ready sometimes in seconds. You walk in, pick it up. The facility is nice and new and bright and clean. They have so many knowledgeable staff members there to answer any questions. As we always say, like wherever you are in your cannabis journey, I've been on mine for a long time, back to the University of Michigan, which was a long time ago.
Hail to the victors.
Hail to the victors,
fight
yes.
song.
But if you're new to it, like you have any questions about the type to buy, the products to buy, the ingredients, anything like that, their staff will help you out, and you will leave having a really good, knowledgeable experience. You can shop the Sunnyside house of brands like Mindy's, the best tasting gummy and chocolate edibles, created by James Beard award-winning chef Mindy Siegel and Cresco Labs, and the Good News brand, gummies, rechargeable vape pens, and carts, perfect for great moments with the crew. Through August, head to sunnyside.shop and use code CHGO25 at checkout for 25% off your total order, one use per customer, not stackable with other promotions. That's not only for new customers. Anyone can use our code. Pick up everything you need to elevate your summer. Must be 21 or older or an Illinois Med card holder. CHGO25 at checkout for 25% off.
Hell yeah. I will add to that nothing goes with cannabis like going to college. Students are just like you. Full-time jobs, families, full-time sports fandoms. Go back to school to earn a respected degree at Lewis University. You like that, Ryan? 35 miles southwest of Chicago and Romeoville, ranked as one of U.S. News and World Report's top-tier colleges. Lewis partners with numerous employers for tuition discounts and offers evening, online, and blended formats to help you balance work, family, and education. Faculty bring real-world experience and instruction to the classroom, which is immediately relevant to your career. We offer career support and academic resources for adult students looking to complete your bachelor's or master's degree or enroll in a professional certificate program. Lewis has the right program for you. Lewis offers several career-focused programs that will set you up for success. I'm just going to highlight one here. I said this the other day. Computer science or data science, any kind of science, it will probably lead to you to working into some Major League Baseball front office one day at this point in our society. So you can do that at Lewis University.
Listen, get a data science degree and figure out why Jameson Tyone isn't as effective.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. See? So discover how a degree from Lewis can help you build a better world. Learn more at lewisu.edu/you can do this. All right. So
you can do it.
When you said, Ryan, when you said something, when you said that I was in a way overreacting to Ian Happ or recency bias.
Recency bias, yeah.
Okay. I took it personally like Michael Jordan did, all right? I'm not saying that he's having a bad season, but to me, the production that he's giving is not enough for what the Cubs are, the role that they're putting him, as in batting him in the 3 or the 4 hole almost every day, all right? So in April, he was great, like I said, 292, 405, 448 slugging with a 135 WRC plus in the month of April. Since May 1st, though, this is in 261 plate appearances.
There you go.
226, 364, 358. So he's getting on base. 364 on base is great, but he's slugging 358, and he's batting in the 3 or the 4 hole almost daily. The WRC plus is 104, so he's barely above league average. Again, he's getting on base. His walk rate is 16.9%. K rate's 26.4%, though. Listen, if he's going to get on base like that, that's great. But if you're only going to slug 358 while still also striking out 26% of the time, like, you're just not getting what the Cubs are asking him to do. And that's my issue. Again, I've said this, that they need to bat him either first or second or move him down to the 5 or 6 hole more consistently, because then he won't be in those run-producing situations. I think he's a very valuable player. This isn't slander to Ian Happ. I just think the Cubs are using him in the wrong role right now.
Well,
I think it goes to roster construction again.
Yeah,
like if they're asking him to be their 3 or even 4 hitter, whatever it is, like, that's probably not the role he should be, and I don't think anyone would say
agree.
he is. But that's what I'm saying is, like, I think you can say that, but you can also say he's having a good year, or he's having a solid year for who he is. Asking him to do something that maybe a role isn't what he should be in. Okay, like I talked about, like, there's definitely cons in his game. The walking, not being as aggressive in runners in scoring position situations. I totally get that. There's definitely, he's not going to. This team that's going to win the World Series, I don't see him being one of their top hitters, right? I don't. But right now, that's what they're asking him to be. So I agree, he's not producing in that sense. But I also think it does go back a little bit to the roster construction.
I guess this is more of yes, roster construction is a good criticism for it.
I think on its own, he's having a solid year. But if you're going to put it in the context of like what they're asking him to do, sure, he's not probably living up to that.
I guess I'm sitting at a point where I haven't blamed David Ross for a lot of things as much as a lot of people in the YouTube chat or anyone on social media, but how many more play appearances does it take for Ian Happ to just
to just change it, because he's willing to move other people around. Nico Horner leads his team in RBIs, but you're batting him leadoff or batting him second every other day. I don't even think Nico Horner should be batting third or fourth, but he leads the team in RBIs. He comes through with runners in scoring position. That's kind of my thing, is how many more plate appearances is it going to take for them to just change something up? They changed the lineup up by putting Mike Tauchman at the top of the lineup when they went to San Francisco after getting swept by the Angels, and they got hot 10 or 13, 11 or 13, whatever it was. But they are unwilling to move Ian Happ or Seiya Suzuki in different parts of the lineup just based off, I guess what they've done in the past or what they believe in them. Like, that's kind of my thing. And I guess to me at this point, maybe a little bit of it is recency bias, but also put them in position. If trying to get them to do this in this role of driving runners in, if it ain't working, then change something else up, because they're willing to move Bellinger down to the 7 hole and watch him go 4 for 4 and thank God they won that game, or put Tauchman in the leadoff role, which worked. Like, that's kind of my thing, is like, some guys, they are not willing to budge on changing things up. And I just feel like it would benefit Ian Happ if they just moved him down the lineup or moved him to the top.
Ultimately, I think that, it goes to a conversation we had recently, like they need a power hitter. And, I don't know. I don't think that's something that they're going to address at this deadline. But, like, as we go into this offseason, it just highlights this desperate need for this, because you have a lot of guys who have been good hitters, like good complementary hitters, but they are not, carry an offense kind of hitters. And so I think this just highlights that need for right now. Yeah, I think you got to move some stuff around, and David Ross has been doing a lot of that. But as we go forward, I think the discussion about Happ not slugging enough, Seiya not slugging enough, some of these other guys not slugging enough, it just highlights, like, they need a real power hitter, because then these conversations are very different. Somebody is in that 3-4 spot, driving in runs and driving the ball, and these other guys just fit in like nice puzzle pieces, right? But right now you have a really big puzzle piece that just isn't there. It didn't come in the box, right? Yeah. So for David Ross, it's a tricky thing to put together, because you're balancing a lot of stuff where it's like, Ian Happ is he's been in and out of a little slump somewhat recently, but overall for the last few years he has been a good hitter. He's been an above league average hitter. Great, you want that, right? You need those peppered through your lineup, but at this point we're deciding between a bunch of guys who hits 3 and 4. The answer should be none of them, right? And I think it even pairs with Alzolay in a way, right? He's been great, and I am thrilled to see him in this position. If this team was a 106-win team trying to win the World Series, he might not be your best choice to be your absolute closer, right? We've talked about that because he doesn't get as many whiffs. But I think it's the same thing. We're talking about good players performing well, but you're forcing them into maybe not the ideal position if you're talking about a team that's really in that elite level. So it's a tricky spot.
Yeah. Gary wants Jake Slaughter to be the power hitter to come up.
Listen, I'm ready for Jake Slaughter too, Gary. I want to see Jake Slaughter come up and mash for the Chicago Cubs.
He got 816 OPS at Iowa.
I'm with you. I need him too.
Slugging 487, which is good.
Yeah,
at Iowa.
I hear what you're saying in regards to it. Yes, the Cubs went into the season and they knew that they were going to try and get an unreal season out of Ian Happ. And they paid him all the money after he had a great April. And I still like the deal. I'm still happy they did it. I'm still happy they extended Horner, obviously, too. I guess in the moment right now, it's frustrating to me that they're willing to move other guys around the lineup, but not Ian Happ or Seiya Suzuki. They continue to put those guys up in the same spot. So I don't know what you're grinning about. If it's about me, then
it's just the slaughterhouse.
The slaughterhouse,
which is a good name. I'll give it to. I don't know who started it, but I've seen it a bunch. Slaughterhouse is a good name for it.
Okay. How much time we got left, Sarah?
We got about 15,
okay.
Give or take.
We're going.
Okay. So in the second segment here, we were going to do second half predictions. We were going to do this yesterday, but
we also have a new schedule to look at.
Oh,
some point
I completely forgot about the schedule. Let's do the schedule first because that's fun.
Fine, there we go.
I'm still trying to become Luke Stuckmeyer. I've really struggled with it. So obviously the schedule came out today. I think the biggest thing, I guess, for Cubs fans that people notice early. Okay, I'll start with this. I'm excited that the Cubs are going back to Fenway Park in April next year, and then after that, it's the Tigers come to Wrigley in August.
Yeah.
So Javi Baez returns, and then the Yankees come to Wrigley in September, which means Anthony Rizzo returns to Wrigley for the first time since the deadline of 2021. That will forever scar me.
I think I'm going to end up in the hospital.
Yeah,
I am not
excited
at all. I am not excited at all for that. I'm preemptively miserable about that.
I'm thinking that I will be excited because I think by September 2024, the Cubs will be a really good team, and hopefully it's a really competitive game, and while also getting to celebrate Anthony Rizzo coming back.
It reminds me of a quote from Tom Wamsgans on Succession. He asks if she's scheduling her grief, and that is what I'm doing. It's scheduled for September 6th of 2024, that whole weekend. I will be grieving.
Yeah. I hear you there.
I mean,
it'll be an emotional weekend for sure.
Ryan, anyway. These two weirdos.
The one thing I noticed, they actually end the season at Wrigley Field for the first time in what feels like a long time. They didn't end the season this year, obviously. Last year, I honestly think I saw something saying it the first time since 2018. They finished the year at Wrigley Field, in years. So that's, especially if they're actually a competitive team right there, and they're in, that's obviously good if they're at the end of a division race. It's close, and then they get 3 games at home against Cincinnati to finish it, which, if we're being honest, Cincinnati should also be a pretty good team next year too. So
I feel like the division in general next year will be a lot better. It won't be getting slandered so much for being so bad.
You and I were talking, Ryan, before we jumped on the air. I think one of the interesting things about this schedule is, you look at the end of the season there towards September, you've got L.A., Colorado on the road, Oakland at home, Washington at home, Philly on the road, and then ending with Cincinnati. You play St. Louis and Milwaukee for the last time. It looks like you finished with St. Louis, if this schedule is correct, in August, and you don't play Milwaukee again after July. It almost feels like I'm missing something because that's crazy.
I don't see. Yeah,
But neither of those teams appear on this tentative schedule after August 4th. That's crazy.
Yeah. After the trade deadline, they have 4 against St. Louis.
I don't think I like that.
3 against Pittsburgh. So they have 10 division games after what was probably going to be the trade deadline.
It's cool that they get to play new teams, right? And I do like that part of the schedule. I think in past years it was nice when the Cubs were good to load up on those, 17 games against the Pirates and just you stack those wins, right? But looking at it now, man, if you're in a tight race with some of these teams, you better take care of business early in the season because you don't have that ability to kind of control your own destiny, so to speak, by just winning games against those teams. You're going to have to take care of business elsewhere and hope somebody else is beating them. If you're in a race with, it looks like the last division game is the 4th of September against Pittsburgh. That's crazy. I don't know if I don't know. I don't know if I like that. Just feels a little weird to me.
It's I agree in that. In a world where division races still matter, the winner of the division gets an automatic bid to the playoffs or whatever you call that. In that world, because there may be a world one day in Major League Baseball where divisions don't mean anything anymore. They're just, you play everyone and best teams make it, right? In a world where whoever wins the NL Central makes the playoffs, there should be more games at the end of the year to help decide those division races. I think as Corey mentioned, is not having the ability to, if you're if you're the Cubs right now and you're not playing whoever it was, Milwaukee again, you only have one season until St. Louis, or one series left against St. Louis. If this schedule is this season and you're the Cubs right now, you have very little or very few division games in which to try to make up ground against the rest of your division, especially the teams above you, the Reds, the Brewers. And I don't like that. I think there should be more at the end so that those games really do mean something and can help just kind of flip standings in a way.
Yeah, I generally agree. I think it makes good for, September baseball when you're playing teams in your division and you're in the middle of a race, right?
Yeah.
unfortunately, this didn't work out in the Cubs' favor, but following the team in September of 2018, despite how painful it ended, everyone's scoreboard watching.
Yeah, every game
those
mattered.
games against Milwaukee and St. Louis, those last few weeks of the year, that was huge. And same thing in 2019. Like those games really, really mattered, and they felt like playoff games because everyone knew that those games mattered too. So the fact that you don't get that next year at the end of the year it is kind of annoying. So but also at the same time, like you're not playing teams 20 times a year anymore, so they have to figure out a way to even it out.
Question for you guys: if you were going to take a road trip, because now that they're playing these other teams, you're getting some ballparks in play that maybe you would not have had too many opportunities to see the Cubs play in. You would have had to kind of go and visit and just see whoever was playing. If you had to pick one on this potential 2024 schedule, which ballpark are you trying to watch the Cubs in?
I've been to Fenway Park.
I've never been to Fenway, so that'd probably be top of mind.
Yeah, I mean, I've been to Fenway, but I've never seen the Cubs play at Fenway. So I'd love to go there, but for the sake of the fact that I've already been there, I'd probably go San Diego or Seattle.
For me, it's either Fenway or San Francisco. It's Oracle, right? Oracle Park now.
Yeah.
I think those would be my top two choices as far as like a road ballpark the Cubs will play at next year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You?
Maybe Baltimore.
I mean, I've never been to San Fran, so I think that's an easy choice. Even though the Cubs go there every year, I think Seattle would be cool. I've heard good things. I mean, obviously it looked great in the home run derby and the All-Star game and stuff.
It's true.
I did go to Fenway when they were there in 2017.
2018.
I think. Was it 2018?
Yeah.
Believe sure.
I believe it.
I think it was.
I want to say it's 2018.
I'm a fan of the Chase Field.
In Arizona?
Arizona?
Yeah, I had to double check myself, but because I was like, what's the ballpark with the pool in it that you can actually swim and everything?
With the pool?
Yeah,
I
and
think
so
it's in
I just
Arizona.
Googled and I was like, right, it's the Chase Park.
Yeah,
I was
You
like,
can swim in it
that's-
as long as you're not the Dodgers and you just won the division.
Yeah.
They will bring out the horses for that.
Yeah, that's the one. I've never been to it. That I would love to travel to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Baltimore on there is probably a real one. I've heard that park is just really, really nice.
Yeah.
So I'd really love to do that.
The one I pointed out is L.A. in like May, I think. The Angels visit the Cubs. Will Shohei Ohtani still be an Angel?
Or a Cub. Will he be playing in that game?
Will he be in that
Yeah.
game, and what side would he be on if he is?
Don't let me talk myself.
Also,
into it,
it
baby.
was 2017. I want credit on the air.
Okay.
All right.
Cubs, Red
Well,
Sox
don't let
at
the
Fenway.
facts get in the
Corey
way of a
was
good
right.
story.
We have a super chat from Fernando. Appreciate that, Fernando.
4.99. I honestly, Cubs. I think he's saying I honestly think the Cubs should look at Ohtani. Yes. The price is offset by good 2-position player. Long term, he's a DH in year 7. I'll be at DraftKings on Friday.
Fernando, you don't have to convince us, man.
Yeah, man. There's
and
no one here saying that they shouldn't get Ohtani.
I feel like part of the logic was you go to the DraftKings sportsbook, that money is supposed to be getting funneled back into the team. So,
Yeah.
Fernando, you might be
Tom
supporting
Ricketts
Shohei
legitimately
Ohtani
said
directly.
that at Cubs convention this year.
No, it's a no-brainer. Anybody that says otherwise is just blatantly incorrect.
Yeah.
It's a no-brainer from a baseball perspective. There's your power hitter. There's your top of the rotation arm to go along with Justin Steele, whether Marcus Stroman is still here or not. And from a business perspective, it's easy. I remember watching a game, I think it was last week in San Diego, where they changed the ads behind the plate to Japanese ads because Shohei Ohtani was playing in the game.
Wow.
Like, that's how big his appeal is and how, like, much money is focused when he is playing and going to new ballparks and playing in front of new audiences. That is a no-brainer. I don't care what it costs, right? They should have the money. They've been saving up for all this stuff. We don't have Bryce Harper, like all this stuff. It is a no-brainer. It should be a no-brainer for every team,
Absolutely.
right? But it fits exactly what the Cubs need. And if they're going to pounce, that's the time to do it. If you asked me whether I think Shohei Ohtani is going to be a Cub, I would look you dead in the eye and tell you no. But that's where we sit right now. It's out of my control.
Well, I'll say this. You can dream about it. I'm going to dream about it. Put your Shady Rays on while you dream about it. Am I right?
Yeah, I guess so, right?
Yeah.
I don't generally wear sunglasses when I dream, but if I'm going to do it, it's going to be my Shady
While
Rays.
you're outside, you can dream. Yeah.
Take on the sun with gear built to last. Our friends at Shady Rays have you covered for the warm weather ahead. With premium polarized shades at an affordable price, Shady Rays is an independent sunglass company that offers a world-class product that's just as good as any expensive pair we've worn. It's got durable frames and extremely clear optics for outdoor adventures, and that's not all. Shady Rays offers the most insane protection in all of eyewear. Every pair of sunglasses is backed by lost and broken replacements. If you lose or break your pair, even on day one, they told us they will send you a brand new pair, no questions asked. Wear your Shady Rays with confidence because they have your back long after you purchase. Together with their customers, Shady Rays is providing much-needed support to nonprofit partners across the U.S. through Shady Rays Impact, from building play sets for pediatric cancer patients to providing young adults with MS the outdoor adventure of a lifetime. Shady Rays is making an impact in your community and others like it now and for years to come. If you don't like your Shady Rays, exchange for a new pair or return them for free within 30 days. There's no risk when you shop. Their team always has your back. And exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the season. Go to shadyrays.com and use code CHGO for 50% off 2+ pairs of polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself. The shades rated 5 stars by over 250,000 people.
When you've got those Shady Rays on, it will help you because the lights are so bright from our friends at ComEd. The ComEd Energy Efficiency Program is committed to helping families and businesses in the communities they serve, helping manage energy usage and lower energy bills now and into the future.
Yeah, Corey, ComEd offers a wide variety of incentives on lighting and other efficiency upgrades to commercial, industrial, and public sector customers of all sizes across the territory. ComEd also offers free facility assessments that can help find energy-saving opportunities like for HVAC systems, commercial kitchen equipment, or industrial processes.
How does it work, Cody?
Well, Corey, let me tell you, an authorized engineer will work with you to develop a detailed assessment plan specific to your goals and needs. These can be done in person or virtually and last approximately 2 hours. Within 3 to 4 weeks, customers will receive a report detailing energy efficiency projects that they can start working on immediately. Each recommendation will include estimated energy savings, cost savings, project costs, potential incentives, and simple payback. If you own a business, don't wait, Corey. Get started saving money and energy today. For energy-saving tips, lighting incentives, or to schedule your free facility assessment, go to comed.com/poweringbiz.
Hold on. Did you say comed.com/poweringbiz?
Hell yeah, I did, Corey. Schedule it today. Yeah. Luke Stuckmeyer would be proud. Okay, so we got a handful of minutes left, and I keep saying we're going to do second half predictions, and we're finally going to do it. Really going to do it. I'm sorry I forgot about the schedule release. We should have done that first segment. All right, so for me, anyway, my second half prediction, if we're just talking about like the roster, the player, or whatever, I am standing my ground and believing that Cody Bellinger is staying on this roster. That's where I'm at.
Yeah.
I said at the beginning of the year, and I'm sticking with it.
Okay. I think my prediction, so I actually want to give one like kind of regular prediction and one that's a little more bold. Regular, I think the Cubs are soft buyers at the deadline. I likened it to what the Reds did a couple years ago. They just went and traded for a couple, minor trades for some relief help. Didn't ultimately get them to the playoffs, but like it was just soft buy, not selling off a bunch of pieces, see what they can do over the last couple months of the season. I think the Cubs will come out of this break, play well, get themselves in a position where, 2 months to go in the season, they're still in striking distance for first place in the Central, and they're not going to go all in. They're not going to start selling a bunch of prospects to bring in whatever help they need. But I think they'll go out. Maybe they'll get a lefty reliever. If they don't bring up Jake Slaughter, maybe they can go and get third base help or something. Maybe a cheaper power bat, something like that. But I can see them. I'm going to predict that they will go and be soft buyers at the deadline. So, 3-ish weeks from now, they will not have sold off all their trade assets. My bolder prediction: Justin Steele wins the Cy Young.
Oh, hell yeah. Plus 1,700 on DraftKings Sportsbook right now, baby.
Let's go bold. We know he's been in the race all season. He very easily could have started that All-Star game. Just because he's not a huge part of the national consciousness yet doesn't mean that the people that pay attention will not vote for him at the end of the season. I think he's going to have a really, really good second half. Obviously, he has to prove it because he's not gotten through an entire year of baseball yet because he got shut down in I want to say August last year, and didn't pitch again for the rest of the season. So he has not made it through the end of a full major league season. So he's got to prove it. That's what I'm saying. It's bold. But I mean, I think what he does well as a pitcher is not going to he's not going to go through long periods where he's having bad starts. I don't see that coming for him, and I see him remaining in the race for the Cy Young towards the end, and we're going to go bold. He wins it.
All right.
I don't know if I have a really bold one, but just because it's been a topic of conversation, Seiya Suzuki finished last year with a 116 WRC plus. He's at 105 right now. I think he gets to 120 by the year end. I believe in Seiya Suzuki, right? Is he the power hitter that we need him to be, or that maybe we thought he could be? Obviously not yet, but he's still a good hitter, and I believe in that. And I think when we've seen him in these slumps, I do not think that is reflective of who he is. So I think by year's end, he is a decidedly above league average hitter, quality hitter that is creating offense for this team, even if it is not necessarily in the exact way that we thought.
I think, he finished with 17 homers last year. He's got 6 right now. I believe it was 17.
14.
He finished with 14? Who was I thinking that was 17? I don't know. Whatever. Don't let the facts get in the way of a good story. I think that if he can finish with somewhere close to 20 homers, which he has 6 right now. We've seen hitters get hot for a month. You know what I mean? If he can finish closer, above 15 at the very least, I think we feel a lot better about him going into next year. They just need more. He needs to get that launch angle going, man. He's been hitting too many ground balls. Because I agree. I believe in Seiya Suzuki too, and I think he's a great hitter. We keep talking about the hard hit rate and how it's like top 20 in baseball. He's hitting the ball hard into the ground. So he's got to lift that ball more.
And now can you, Ryan, you might be able to clarify this for me. Is launch angle, is that Delmetrics or is that Sabermetrics?
That is not Delmetrics.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry.
Big of me to use all facets
You're crossing lanes
of
here.
analytics, right? Fangraphs won't do that for Delmetrics.
As we're wrapping up here and we're talking about the second half, this is obviously, I know we said that last 13-game stretch was really critical, but can I offer you another critical stretch here, right? And, look, it's laid out for the Cubs what the point that they need to be at come the trade deadline, August 1st, right?
Yes. Yeah, August 1st.
Where they need to be at is not something that we can answer. That's something that Jed knows or has a feel of, and if he's getting the right offers on certain guys or otherwise, or if you're talking soft buying, if those players are available for a price he's comfortable with, I can't answer that for you. But what I can tell you is that coming out of this All-Star break, it is laid out almost as well as you could ask for if you need to go on a run, right? The Cubs play one team that has a record that is above 500. That's the Boston Red Sox, right? Otherwise, you have the Nationals, who are 18 games under. You have the Cardinals, who are 14 games under. Again, that's the St. Louis Cardinals, who are in last place in the NL Central, 14 games under 500, 11 and a half games back. Just clarifying. Any people might not know who I was talking about.
They also traded Randy Arozarena, Adolis Garcia, Zach Gallen, and Sandy Alcantara.
You get the White Sox, who are 16 games under 500, then the Cardinals again, right? So it's there for you. On August 1st, I think you start a series with the Reds. So obviously if you're in that mix, that's going to be a critical series. But coming out of the All-Star break in the position that you're in, but Boston's a handful over. That's going to be a tough team, even though I believe they're in last place in the AL East. They're still 5 games over 500. Solid enough team. But you're playing a bunch of teams that if you want a shot, you have to be able to beat. Yeah. And especially those 2 series with the Cardinals, the Cubs aren't the ones mouthing off. We are. But, if you're going to look at them being in last place and we're sitting here yucking it up, you better beat them, right? Because otherwise those, I think it's 7 or 8 games with the Cardinals.
This is, it's 8
that has a chance to bury your season. So it's funny that they're in last place right now, and Mozeliak is talking about trading guys. It would not be funny if you can't take care of business with them, which when they came to Wrigley Field the last time, you didn't really. So it's laid out for the Cubs. If they can't make it work with this type of schedule, then all of this is for naught anyway.
Yeah, it's 16-game stretch leading into that Cincinnati series, which is the second day is the trade deadline. 16 games, all very winnable. series, of course, but games, like the only one that like you can say this team is better than the Cubs, or at least right now is Boston to start off the All-Star break. They're, to their credit, they're 5 games over 500, although they are in last place in the AL East. But that's like the scariest team in this next stretch for the Cubs. So I'm totally with you. They can take control of their own destiny. They might not be able to make up ground, so to speak, but they can win a lot of ball games coming up in this next 16 games and hope that the Brewers or the Reds start to scuffle a little bit coming out of the break, because they have a very winnable schedule.
Well, and
I very much agree with you.
And by contrast, I'll get the Brewers in a second, but the Reds have a very tough schedule coming out of the break. They play the Brewers, the Giants, the D-backs, the Brewers, and then the Dodgers, right? A lot of that is at home, which is nice for them, but those are all teams that are winning games right now. I believe all of those teams are above 500.
Yeah.
So compared that to the Cubs, you've got 6 games where the Brewers and Reds are going to be playing each other while you're playing not great competition. So someone's losing games. You ought to be making up ground on somebody. So
you got to take care of business.
Again,
the Cubs have a much easier second half schedule than both Milwaukee and the Reds.
And so just in this couple week period, this is where it's going to count. Like Brewers, this is where you're making decisions.
Brewers have Reds, Phillies, Braves, Reds. Not Phillies. Well, yeah. Reds, Phillies, Braves, Reds, Braves.
Yeah.
Like that's tough. Both of those are tough schedules.
Yeah. So Milwaukee and Reds are going to duke it out. And listen, I agree the Red Sox are a very solid team. They'd probably be a lot better if they're in a different division. However, the Cubs have played well against the AL East. So I'm actually feeling optimistic going into tomorrow. They're coming off a great game, winning a series against the Yankees. They won the series against the Orioles. They won the series against the Rays. They won the series against the Yankees. All right, so listen, I know none of that means anything going into the series, but they have played well against that division. And yeah, the Red Sox, their pitching is, I think that the Cubs offense can get going this weekend, and hopefully it does.
When I think it's a fair, it's again how you feel about what they should do or what I don't know, but I do think this is one of those stretches where you look at the Reds schedule, you look at the Brewers schedule, and you look at the Cubs schedule. And it is a place where if this team cannot play well enough to convince Jed not to either soft buy or just not to blow stuff up, they won't deserve it.
Yeah.
They're going to be playing teams that they have to be beating if they want to get back in a race, even in a bad division. If they can't do it, then they won't deserve the help.
Yeah.
It'll make the decision even easier for Jed if he's on the fence.
I would say that they have to be over 500 by August 1st for them to even soft buy, in my opinion.
Potential.
That's where I think that if they're 5 under right now, and we just talked about how favorable the schedule is. If they're not at least at 500 by then, I think that they're not. I don't think they'll even soft buy. Maybe soft sell. I don't think they full on sell.
I'm going to disagree. I think maybe just where they are standing wise matters a little more. If they're 2 games under 500. But they're within or they're within striking distance of first place, I think maybe they go and soft buy.
Yeah,
it could be it. I think just where they are in the division really does factor. If they can't make up any ground on these guys, then it's a different story.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they're going to do that, but thankfully the Brewers and the Reds are going to play each other a couple times here. Hopefully the Cubs, take advantage of the schedule. And let's be real, they haven't fully done that when they absolutely needed to. Outside of that 11 to 13 stretch. But, yeah, we'll see. We'll be back, or I'll be back here tomorrow for pre and post with Kevin Wells. Ryan will be at the ballpark, kick off the second half of the season. Brendan might be joining me and Kevin, remotely from California, which, according to Corey, is
Are we still on the air? Sorry.
He might be. I can't promise. But anyway,
we're back.
We have pre and post tomorrow here. At the CHGO Sports Studio. So,
and then Corey and Brennan on Sunday?
Yeah, and Corey and Brennan on Sunday.
Also, I just want to wish Cody Bellinger a happy birthday.
That's fair.
I got bored today, so I made just a little something.
Hell yeah. Happy birthday to Cody
happy
Bellinger.
birthday.
And you might be able to see Cody Bellinger at your local Sunnyside Cannabis Dispensary.
Use code CHGO25.
That's how he's celebrating his birthday.
All right. So, we'll see you tomorrow. Hit the like button on the way out. I saw there's around 70-some people in here and only 41 likes. Do us a favor. hit the like button so other people on YouTube can see us,
because we're only trying to grow here, baby. We're not trying to go down.
All right. Thanks for dropping in. Check out the CHGO Cubs podcast. We'll see you tomorrow.
Pre-game, Barb.
Pre-game live right here. We'll see you there.